You feel like you are failing at this. You pray, but the prayer feels hollow. You read the Bible, but nothing sticks. You show up to church, you sing the songs, you say the right things, and yet inside there is a quiet voice telling you that everyone else has something you do not, that everyone else seems to get it, and you are still out here pretending. If that is where you are, this is for you. Because you are not failing at faith. You have just been taught to practice it in a way that was never going to work. And no one told you there was another way. Why is this more serious than it seems? Because the wrong approach to faith does not just produce frustration. It produces a slow, quiet disillusionment that is very hard to recover from. You start to believe the problem is you, your personality, your sin history, your inability to be the kind of person God would actually want to be close to. But that is not the diagnosis the Bible gives. Romans 10:17 says, "Consequently, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word about Christ." Faith comes from hearing, not from performing, not from trying harder, not from being more disciplined, more consistent, or more spiritually impressive. From hearing. And the one thing most Christians are doing wrong is this: they are working to produce faith instead of positioning themselves to receive it, and that single shift changes everything. First, you have been trying to manufacture faith through willpower. This is the mistake that exhausts more sincere believers than almost anything else. Someone told you that faith is something you have to fight for, that if you are struggling to believe, you just need to try harder, read more, pray longer, confess more specifically, serve more faithfully. And so you pushed and you burned out. And then you felt ashamed of the burnout because it seemed like more evidence that you were failing. But faith was never designed to be a product of human effort. It is a gift that grows in the soil of relationship. Ephesians 2:8-9 says, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast." Not from yourselves. That applies to the faith itself, not just the salvation it produces. You did not generate it, you received it. And what you received can grow, but only in the right conditions. Stop striving to manufacture more of what was always meant to be given. Second, you have been measuring your faith by how it feels rather than by what it does. This is the second trap, and it is everywhere. Emotional faith feels big when worship is powerful and small when the week is hard. It peaks at conferences and bottoms out on ordinary Tuesdays. And the person measuring their faith by how it feels will always be on an exhausting spiritual roller coaster that never goes anywhere stable. But Jesus never measured faith by feeling. He measured it by function. In Matthew 17:20, he said, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move." As small as a mustard seed. That is not an emotional crescendo. That is a quiet, small, unimpressive thing that functions. The faith that moves mountains is not the faith that feels the most confident. It is the faith that acts despite uncertainty. Stop measuring your faith by its emotional temperature. Measure it by whether it still moves you toward God, even on the days it feels like nothing. Third, you have been trying to grow your faith in isolation. Faith is relational by design. It grows in conversation with God, in community with other believers, and through the stories of what God has done in the lives of those around you. But isolation convinces you that your struggle is uniquely shameful, that what you are going through is something no one else would understand. And that shame keeps you from the very relationships where your faith would be strengthened. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." Spur one another on, not manage your faith privately and hope it gets stronger on its own. Spur one another. The faith God designed for you was not meant to survive alone. It was meant to be built in the company of people who are also choosing to believe. Find one person this week who will ask you honest questions and tell you honest truth, because the faith that feels smallest in isolation often comes alive the moment it is shared. Fourth, you have been asking God to increase your faith without giving him the conditions to do it. This sounds subtle, but it is one of the most practical corrections you can make. Luke 17:5 records the disciples saying to Jesus, "Increase our faith." And that is a legitimate prayer. But faith increases through exposure, through obedience, through stepping into things that require God to show up. It increases through difficulty endured with trust, through promises held, through seasons of silence, through acts of obedience that precede the feeling of certainty. You cannot pray for more faith and then live in a way that never requires it. A faith that is never tested never grows. And a faith that never grows eventually begins to feel like no faith at all. The person whose faith is strongest is not the person who avoided the hard seasons. It is the person who went through them trusting God and came out the other side having seen him be faithful. Ask God to increase your faith, then step into the thing that requires it. Because faith grows in the doing, not just in the asking. So, what do you do differently starting today? Stop performing and start positioning. Open the word not to check a box, but to hear a word. Pray not to demonstrate your faith, but to be in the presence of the one who produces it. Find a community that does not require you to have it all together, and take one step today that requires more trust than you currently feel. Because Hebrews 11:6 says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." He rewards those who earnestly seek him, not those who have it perfectly figured out, not those who never struggle, those who earnestly seek. That is enough. That has always been enough. You do not need to have more faith. You need to aim your existing faith in the right direction. And the right direction is always only him. The decision is yours. You can keep exhausting yourself trying to be a better version of faithful, or you can stop striving, open your hands, and let the God who gave you faith in the first place grow it in you. You are not failing. You never were. You were just trying to do something in your own strength that was always meant to be done in his. And the moment you release the effort and receive the grace, something will shift. Something always shifts when you stop performing and start resting in him. If this message found you where you have been struggling, write this in the comments. Lord, I stop striving. I trust you to grow my faith. Let that be your declaration. And if this message spoke to your heart, subscribe to FaithSketch, because here everything is built on the Word of God, of